I'm back, and it is time for your weekly dose of feel good on Good Morning Joy. I'm your host, Shari Alyse, and not surprisingly, you are in for another fantastic show. So make sure that you're comfortable because you're not going to want to miss a minute of this one. On today's show, I have got a story that is going to touch your heart. 200 strangers saved the life of my guest after she suffered a 45-minute cardiac arrest. Stephanie Shaffer is here today to share her story and how all of those kind acts created a ripple effect, not only in her life, but in people around the world. Plus, on today's Sharing with Shari, I'm not the only one that's going to be peeking into people's hearts. I am letting you in on the action too. But before we get into all of that fun, it's time to share with you the good news that you should know about. It's the Joy Report. A 10-year-old boy was recently reunited with his cherished Lego figure after he devised a missing persons campaign. Jack Steele was left distraught when he misplaced his beloved Lego figure, a mini-me representation, also named Jack. After arriving at school, he noticed that he hadn't closed the zipper on his backpack and quickly realized his treasured toy was nowhere to be found. Jack told reporters that he was really sad and thought about how he could get it back. One idea came to mind: a missing person poster. The British schoolboy created a lost poster and offered a reward of £2 for whoever found it. Jack got to work with his crayons, crafting an elaborate illustration of the Lego toy. He labeled all the parts, including the eyebrows, and the caption read, "Lost. Has anyone seen this Lego man? He's very special to me." Jack's mom, Lorna, shared the poster on Facebook, and soon after, Jack's Lego man was found by a local schoolgirl in the park where he plays. Lorna expressed her gratitude by gifting the young heroine a box of chocolates for her good deed. I'm happy to report that Jack and Mini Jack are happily reunited, and he's keeping a close watch on him. And now for a shameless, cute animal video. My guest today is not only an international professional speaker, but she is a beacon of hope, helping people find peace and resilience in life's toughest challenges. From suffering a 45-minute cardiac arrest to advocating blood donations, her story has inspired kindness and inspiration to countless lives around the world. Please welcome Stephanie.
Hello, Shari. Thank you so much for having me here today.
It's such an honor to have you here. I obviously have read a lot about you and talked to you beforehand. And before we even dive into your incredible story, I just want to thank you and acknowledge the fact that, number one, you're here, like literally here.
Yeah.
And you're not just here to share your story and what's happened, but you are giving people hope and what's possible for them.
Right.
So I just want to thank you for that.
Oh, thank you so much.
Of course. So let's get into the important stuff first. What's making you smile today?
Reflecting on what you just said, the fact that I'm here. You know, I drove, it was about 2 hours to get here, lots of traffic, and I went to gratitude. It was like, thank you that I get to sit here in this traffic. Thank you that I get to deal with an opportunity to come share my story. Instead of getting panicked and frustrated or overwhelmed, just going to gratitude and the fact that I'm here every day is a gift.
all right, the show's over. That was enough. No, that is such an important lesson for all of us, because we all do get carried away by what they say, you know, don't stress the small stuff or don't sweat the small stuff. And so many of us do. And I'm guilty of that too.
Yeah.
Being here is a big deal. So that's something huge to smile about, of course.
Yes.
I would love for you to share about that day that forever changed your life, and how those 45 minutes, how that has changed your outlook on life. So if you could just take us back to that day and what happened.
Okay. It really starts with the day I was born. I was born with a profoundly rare vascular disorder. It's called Klippel-Trenaunay syndrome. A lot of medical doctors have never even heard of it, but I knew having a child was going to be risky. And so my cardiac arrest happened. It was day 12 after our son was born. And I got about 55 units of blood, 55 blood transfusions before the cardiac arrest. And my heart gave out. It couldn't handle all of that extra blood. And I went to cardiac arrest. And in that moment, I knew what was happening. I felt 2 chest compressions. And I said to myself, Steph, if you fight this, you're not going to win. You got to let go and surrender. And in that moment, I surrendered to God, and I knew I was going to be okay. I felt the most overwhelming sense of peace. It wasn't overwhelming, the most infiltrating feeling of peace. And I just knew I was going to survive.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm a detail kind of person. So
perfect.
Are you able to share what that moment is like? Like, could you feel yourself take that last breath? Like, what was that moment?
I felt the chest compressions, and I'm hearing all the medical stuff go off, the beeping, I just heard all that noise going on, and it was blank. It was white, and I could just, it was like time stopped, time stood still. And I had that conversation with myself, and I absolutely knew, I just knew. It was a knowing. It was a sense of peace that just consumed my body. But I also knew if I fought it on my own, if I fought, I wasn't going to survive.
Wow.
And it was in that surrender, it was in that letting go that I was able to connect to God, to peace. And I knew I was going to be okay, that I didn't have to fight. I just had to let go.
Such a powerful reminder for us all, because, you know, I often say when we're fighting or it's like we're holding on to something and we want, it's of course naturally going to want to fight back and pull away from us. And the minute that we let go, everything releases. So beautiful. So I'm curious, what happened, or do you remember those 45? I mean, obviously there's probably no time for you, but the 45 minutes, did you have one like a near-death experience?
I call that my near-death experience.
Got it.
Yeah,
okay.
Because after I felt those two chest compressions and I surrendered, I don't remember anything else. And the next thing I remember was coming out of my 4-hour surgery. Because after they got my heart rate back, my heartbeat, I was taken into a 4-hour surgery. And that's when they took out my spleen, took out my uterus. And I remember getting pulled out of that, trying to respond to the doctors. In reading your story, there's so many nuggets here of just good people and kind acts. And even I read about your respiratory therapist. I was actually in the cardiac floor. So I was out of the intensive care unit. And so we're talking probably week 5 that I was in the hospital.
How long were you in the hospital for?
A total of 7 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. It was 51 days. So my husband and we would watch American Idol at night, and she came bouncing in. And she was like, hi, you're not going to remember me, but I was the respiratory therapist the night of your cardiac arrest. And I couldn't match her energy. Like I'm separated from my baby. I've seen my baby twice by that time in 5 weeks. And I'm deflated. I'm defeated. And she just comes with this vibrant energy. And she just told me, you're not going to remember me, but I was there. And she said, do you mind if I sit with you and share my perspective of what happened the night of your cardiac arrest? And I said, oh my gosh, by all means, please. And she said, the surgeon called the code at 42 minutes. He just said, we're done. 42 minutes is a very long time. And she said to the surgeon, Doc, don't stop. She has a grip on my hand. Don't stop. And so they took an ultrasound of my heart and there was a flutter. So they resumed CPR and in 3 minutes, I got a heartbeat. And I was just like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for sticking up for me, because it's hard to stick up to a trauma surgeon.
Yeah.
And I don't know what, that squeezing of the hand, there was a connection there. And, it's just like I was blown away. I was speechless, and it's hard for me to become speechless.
As a speaker, right?
Yes. And I was just in awe, and just all I could say was, thank you. Thank you so much. And then I asked her, what is your name? And when she told me Angel, I was more floored. And I even said, you're kidding me. Like, what's on your birth certificate? I literally asked her that question. And she said, Angel.
Wow. She literally was your angel on so many levels, because if she had just let that call go at that 42 minutes, we wouldn't be here sharing that story today. And you had over 200 angels. Can you talk about that?
Yes. So when it was all said and done, I had over 125 units of blood. So that right there is 125 donors, but I also got 10 bags of packed plasma, and one bag takes 10 donors. So that right there is 100 donors. So I didn't even have 200 people at my wedding. Think about how many people 200 people is. Think about that. And that's how many strangers showed up, donated. And a lot of donors don't understand this. They don't understand that when they're donating blood, every bag saves up to 3 lives.
Wow.
And if we're talking preemies, little babies, it saves 4 infants. And donors don't realize that you're literally saving lives. And then it's not only my life that got saved, my husband's life got saved that day, our son's life, my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister, my friends. It goes on and on. That's why I wear a butterfly. One of the reasons. I got many butterfly stories, but it's the butterfly effect that when a donor saves 1 life, that butterfly effect, it keeps going, and it's still going today.
What was your own mental state leading up to that day? Was this something that you struggled with, your mental health?
Absolutely. And that's a brilliant question.
Why they pay me the big bucks.
You're brilliant. You know this. So because of, I was born with biological depression and anxiety. It's in my genetics. And in addition to that, being born with my syndrome, that caused my left leg to be purple, deformed, massive varicose veins. And so I looked different. I am deformed. And just growing up and dealing with the looks and the stares and the poor self-esteem and the nobody's going to like me or nobody's going to accept me, navigating that pretty much on my own because, no fault of my parents, but this was not discussed.
Yeah.
We weren't talking about mental health in the 80s. and especially, how would a birth defect influence a little girl trying to grow up and be quote unquote normal, whatever that is. So going into the pregnancy and all that, I had to go off of my medication for the pregnancy. And I was actually home my first trimester when my husband and I moved to Temecula. I wasn't going to work. And once I got over my morning sickness that first trimester, I was going into a clinical depression again. I was nervous. I was scared.
Yeah.
And I was a scheduled C-section. So that was overwhelming as well. But I was not prepared for our son to be born. And I was told you have 10 seconds to hold him. He was in respiratory distress. And so I only had 10 seconds to hold him. I wasn't prepared for that. And I certainly wasn't prepared for day 10 being transferred to a different hospital. And then 2 days later going into the cardiac arrest.
Wow. You've had some traumatic experiences in your life, to say the least.
Yeah.
Where does one find that strength and that courage to continually show up, to be resilient? Where do they find this resilience?
Another good question. It really, for me, it's taken me decades to understand that we have to, here's a cup, we have to restore our cup. We have to fill our cup. And it's not cliche. When we're pouring out, I'm a clinical social worker, and social workers pour out. And it wasn't until after my cardiac arrest where I realized, wow, if I'm not well, I can't help my family. I can't help my dependent, innocent child if I don't take care of myself first. So it wasn't until my 30s that I came to realize what self-care meant, what filling my cup meant. Self-care is not selfish. Self-care is essential. And it starts with restoring first in that knowledge, in that stillness, in that surrender that allows me to stay fueled.
Yeah, it's such great advice, because we're all like, there's activity around us all the time. We're always going. The mind is always going. And I just had that reminder this morning as I was taking a walk. I had put a meditation on, and there was just this moment where it was like, this is the only thing happening right now. And that complete stillness came over, and so much just joy and love and all of that. And it's just such a great reminder that we have to gift ourselves with that's the best self-care we can give us, is that slowing down and to be able to listen as you have.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we have to. And, it's okay to admit I'm not capable of doing everything. We weren't designed to be able to do everything.
And you're such a beautiful, shining example of, you said you were born with biological depression. Exactly. So even with that, being able to know that you have to do these practices, that you have to take this time for yourself, and to be able to, again, show up during all these traumatic experiences and still be here and still help so many people. Share with us some of the work you do as a speaker.
I take what I've learned over the years. I've worked over 2 decades with people who are suffering. They're grieving, they're going through some sort of loss. And, back when I first started being a social worker, it was hospice work. So I've gained so much insight and knowledge being a listener, helping people through their individual personal journeys. And so now I take those lessons. I have learned so much. I'm writing a book, there's just so much information to share and to give. And so I want to impact, instead of 8 people a day in private practice, I want to help 8,000 people a day, because this information, it's universal. It's human experience. It's the human race. We can all identify with loss. It doesn't matter what gender, what religion, what political point we take, it doesn't matter. We're human beings, and we all experience hardship.
Mm-hmm.
We all experience loss, disappointment, regret. We all have that. And I want to take that, and I just want to help as many people as I can. And that's where I'm at.
Curious, because I know that you talked about your husband and being a caretaker for him, because he has had 3 bouts with cancer. Can you just talk about a little bit about the journey with your husband, but also what has all of this taught you in life, like your outlook? How has it changed everything for you?
My life has been hit with these life-changing things. And it's just like, one stressor after another. And this is life. This is part of life. My husband, he was diagnosed with stage 3 melanoma. We're going on 7 years ago. Our son was 10. When he got diagnosed, and then he got thyroid cancer and kidney cancer, all unrelated, all in an 18-month span.
Wow.
And he had 5 surgeries. And it wasn't until his first diagnosis, but the stage 3 was very life-threatening. And that really hit me like a ton of bricks, because here I am in private practice dealing with grief and loss. And I remember going, oh my gosh, Steph, you've got to practice what you preach. In going through those surgeries, and our kids are incredible teachers. Our son Brian was asking very deep questions. What are we going to do if Dad dies? His greatest fear is that we were going to be homeless. That was our son's greatest fear. And then I was able to go through the friends, the family, would this person, would this person ever let us go homeless? And he said, no. And so that reflects of the importance of making sure we have great connections. And we've learned much better communication. We've learned when we get upset, the 3 of us, let's lean in, let's talk about it. Let's share the feelings and share, that hurt me, that hurt my feelings. And just to have those conversations that I think maybe before all of this, avoiding the conversation would have happened, or, just not talking, that's what's changed, is just that knowing we don't have the promise of even this afternoon. I don't have the promise that I'm getting back to Temecula today from LA. I don't have the promise that my husband's getting home from San Diego. And that every night when we get back together, it's recognizing how that's a miracle. That is such a blessing. And there's going to be thousands of people just in this country that are not going to be able to say that tonight. And not to lose sight of the preciousness of life and the preciousness of we all made it home safe. And we get to do the laundry. Mm-hmm. We get to do the dishes. We get to do the errand. We get to take the dogs on a walk. It's not have tos. We get to. The shift of perspective.
And that, I think, is the gift more than anything. And what you're giving us all today is this gift of the shift of perspective and seeing what's really important and seeing how close you were to not being here today, but to be able to share these lessons with us. And we thank you so much for that. And I love that your family, that you are all together, and that everyone is healthy. And what in your life is bringing you joy today?
I love my family. I love my friends. I love helping others. I love having time with friends, family. I'm a pretty simple person, and just being together and listening to music. Like my family, my sister's famous for putting on a dance party.
I love that.
And we just do that.
Yeah.
My mom and dad, they're doing their swing dancing together, and, we get Footloose going, or, old time rock and roll, and just being silly, not taking ourselves so seriously. It's really that time together. That's what I love with family, with friends, and the simple things, just enjoying a meal together and talking. Yeah. And I'm like you, I ask a lot of questions and just, let's go deeper, and let's just, have time together. And that's really, if I have that,
you have everything.
Period.
Well, I do want to go deeper for one quick second. So you shared with us all the things that bring you joy, but I know that there's something secretive. Like for me, I love talking to trees. Nobody sees it. I hug them. Is there something that maybe nobody really knows about that brings you joy?
Oh my God. It goes back to the dance party. I dance in my bathroom. I will put on Pink radio. I love it. And I just dance and I sing, and I'm just like, I'm performing.
Yeah.
But I've never told anybody this, until right now.
This is why, again, they pay me the big bucks.
Yeah. And I'm not embarrassed about it. It brings me joy.
Yeah.
It brings me so much fun.
I love it. Stephanie, I am so grateful for all of the people the over 200 people that were your angels that day, that brought you here to us, that continue to have you show up on stages and inspire thousands of people. I honor you. I honor your life, and I honor all of those who performed those kind acts. Thank you for being here today with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate my time with you.
And now it's time to hit the streets on this week's
Keep going. Definitely keep going. Life is a roller coaster with ups and downs. You got to just keep pushing. So I would say keep going is the best advice I've gotten.
And do you take that advice for yourself every day?
Absolutely. Yeah, every day I'm like, no matter, I know I'm going to face adversity at some points of the day or the week or the hour. And it's like, you just got to keep going. So.
Did someone teach you that?
Yeah, I played basketball most of my life. And I think, playing sports in general kind of teaches you like move on to the next play. And that's kind of how I live my life.
Thanks so much for spending time with me today. Don't forget to go out there and share your smile with someone that needs it today. That small, kind act can brighten the world. I'll see you next time on Good Morning Joy, where every day starts with a smile.